Well, hello, music friends. You're listening to your Tuesday afternoon alternative on WUDR Dayton. From the University of Dayton, we are rocking the Gem City, music in all directions, and as I like to say, support your local music scene. I am so excited. Today I'm here with Tamar Berk, whose new album, Start at the End, clever, is a phenomenal record. I love this
Aw.
record. And this
Aw.
is a new, she's been making music for a while now. And so I got to say, first of all, thank you for doing this, Tamar.
Oh, no problem. I loved meeting you over Twitter. That was really cool.
And it wasn't weird at all.
No, because I reached out to you. See how that works?
Well, and I love the fact that you were so subtle too. You're like, check this out, right? Or listen to this music. It sounds like you'd like this music. And I'm like, okay, you don't really know me, but wow, do you really know me?
Awesome. Well, I try to say, like, well, most radio stations, I would think, especially college radio, they are looking for new stuff. So it would be strange if they didn't at least click on the first song just to see, because it is, I mean, I would think they in their job description to discover new bands and discover new independent artists. So um, I'm not really aggressive about it, but hey, you might like this. And I'm singer-songwriter, indie pop. So, but you were so like immediate. Like I loved that because I was like, oh no, he loves it.
Well, I
Yay.
guess
So
that's where social media worked well, like it's
yes.
supposed to.
Yes, yes. Twitter is an interesting and lovely community for radio. I have found that community to be better for radio than others, than, like Instagram or Facebook or what have you. There, maybe maybe it's the nature of like how quickly like stations can tag artists and show that they're playing them, and it's just a really cool feeling when you're an independent artist like me to like be tagged, oh, we're playing you right now. Like it's exciting and it's cool. And then you realize how many stations are on Twitter that you could reach out to. They don't always respond, but when they do, it's like, oh, well, here's a Bandcamp code for my album. Try it, listen to it. You might like a song. So it was a kind of a cold tweet, if you will, instead of a cold call. Yeah.
Well, but I also think, like you're saying, it can be effective and an efficient way of getting at least some contact.
Yes.
And I think, given we were talking a little bit off air, I think given just how much is out there,
Oh my gosh.
it can be a real challenge.
Oh my gosh. Yes. And there's never been so many bands. There's just thousands because everybody can do it now and put it up by themselves. And there's nothing wrong with that. But to sift through a lot of really bad music, just statistically speaking, you are going to have a lot more bad music just because of the number of bands, and you're going to have a lot of good music. But how do you sift through that? Well, for radio people and blog people, and sometimes it's just that, okay, I'll give it a second. Let me listen to it just for a second. And if you're an artist like me, that's that lucky break, that lucky moment, because I don't have a label. I don't have like a big machine behind me. So a lot of it is sort of old fashioned. And I am a little bit old fashioned. I'm also like, I like to reach out to people. I particularly love radio people, I think, because um, oh, I used to love listening to the radio. The radio was everything. The radio was like my only way to like hear new music,
Sure.
unless my big sister bought a record and brought it home. And so I have a soft spot for it, and I always thought maybe it's something I would love to do because I used to make tapes all the time, just me talking and making a pretend radio shows. So I mean, Art, I was like a little like freak about radio. I loved hearing my voice on tape. So I respect that. It's not easy. You put yourself out there on the airwaves and you don't know who's listening. Could be nobody. It could be a million. It could be, you're just talking to the wind, you know? And I love that because it's the same as what I'm doing. I put a record out. I have no idea who's going to listen. I really don't. And if I'm lucky, or if a couple people start to tell their friends and like it starts sort of a small ball rolling and more people hear about it. And it's the same as a radio person. I really think that way, you know? And so
I
I
can
don't
see
know.
you. I can see you as a DJ. You'd be great.
Oh yeah, and I love interviewing. I love asking questions too. So when you asked me if I want to do an interview, I'm like, yeah, because I'd love to know about you too. It's cool, you know?
Well, and I think creating those connections is a way of not just getting the music heard, which of course is important and
Right.
is a major piece of what you're doing, but also finding like-minded people,
Yeah.
finding folks that you connect or resonate with.
Yes.
I I have had so many folks call in, and I love that when they call in and say, "What was that song? That was
Yes.
amazing," or
Yes.
"Who was that artist?" And it is just such a joy for me to be able to say, "Well, I've got the sheet right here," or
Yes.
if you
Yes.
go to our website, you'll be able to see actually what was played and the order it was played, et cetera, et cetera. But I also think that discovery
Yes.
is something that I think musicians and radio folks have in common.
Yes. Yes. I agree.
Wanting to explore sound in some
Mm-hmm.
way,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
and you've done a fair amount of that.
Yes. Yes. I've been doing this for a long time, but you know, um, but really 2021 was the first solo album. So
Right,
as
right.
far, I mean, my first band was me writing all the songs and me fronting, but I did not go by my name. It was called Starball, and it was like a power pop band. And you can still find that on Spotify. But that was in Chicago, and I lived there. I did grow up in Cleveland, so I do need to say that because I know you're in Dayton.
That's right. You
And
got to make
my
those Ohio roots
I
there.
know. And in fact, on my first album, there's a song called Cleveland on it.
There you go.
So I do have a fond spot for Cleveland. I did want to leave after I graduated, though. And that's when I went to Chicago and used my degree from Kent State because I went to Kent State and
Okay.
um, and then started my first band. But but I have been writing songs since bought my first 4 track. So I mean, we're talking a long time. And
So have you always written songs?
I was one of those kids that constantly heard melodies and would make up songs. So I don't know why. There was something about my brain that wanted repetition and hooks and melodies and things that stuck with me. I have a little bit of, I mean, I grew up playing piano. Piano was my first instrument. All 3 of us, my sisters, we were all had to take piano lessons. And we grew up on classical music. And there's a lot of repetition of certain themes, when you think about Bach or Mozart, and theme and variations. You have a theme and you vary it and you learn the patterns and rhythms of things. And then, listening to a lot of Disney growing up because, I was in the era of like loved Disney, loved the hooks and the melodies of all of those soundtracks. And so I grew up like with lots of sort of melodic things going on in my brain and a lot of musical theater. Not that we would go because we didn't have the money to go see musical theater, but we would buy the soundtracks,
Mhm.
of Jesus Christ Superstar or Fiddler on the Roof or
Right.
all of these great musicals. And my dad had a reel to reel, if you could believe it. And, the stuff would like soak into your subconscious. And I was always writing little melodies. And then until I bought my first guitar, I knew I had a knack for it, but I didn't really know what my voice or sound was. And so, Starball did fairly well in Chicago. Started a couple other bands, The Countdown, went to Portland, did The Countdown, did The Pinnacles, did Paradise, released lots and lots of music, played organ in Farfisa, played in a bunch of tribute bands, and it was only until I moved to San Diego where I was really feeling, once again, if you move, or when you're a musician and you move, you are once again kind of depressed because you just established all these years of like your musical kinship with people, the people you played with, the clubs you knew, you know.
Yeah.
And once again, after going from Cleveland to Chicago to Portland and to San Diego, it was like starting over again. And at that point, I was like exhausted. And I remember answering a Craigslist ad for keyboards because, that's my first instrument. Um, but I write on guitar, but that was the instrument that I would like find a band and play with, whatever. And I went to the audition. I was like, you know what? I don't think I want to do this anymore. I don't think I want to be in a band anymore. If I'm going to be making music, I think I got to put my own stuff out finally. And so art, since I've been writing songs, I would be, I have thousands of them on these on cassette tapes. Okay. And in my Pro Tools studio that I never really did anything with under my name. So I knew it was the time. And I met some people here slowly after having guested on keyboards in their band. So it was the same sort of thing. Hey, would you play keyboards in my band? But they were really sweet. And I said, I'm trying to put some songs together for my own project. And they agreed. And we started rehearsing the songs for the first album. I'm going to hold it up because I know this is video, The Restless Dreams of Youth, which is the first album. But what happened is we were rehearsing in December, and then in March, COVID.
Right.
So once again, I'm like, oh my God, are you kidding me? Like, I was just getting excited about finding a studio in San Diego and recording, and all that just went to, down the toilet. And my friend Matt Thompson, who is a recording engineer, said, well, Tamar, you know a lot of musicians in all of your bands. You've got to know a drummer who can record in their home studio. And so I contacted Matt Walker, who is a amazing drummer, amazing musician, composer. He played in Morrissey and Garbage and Smashing Pumpkins, in Filter. And I've known him for years from the Chicago scene.
Yeah.
And he agreed. He was like, I like your stuff. And so we did The Restless Dreams of Youth over the internet.
Really?
Yeah. I recorded almost all of the instrumentation with the exception of the lead guitar, which my friend who had been starting in San Diego and luckily has his own home studio. So he played all the lead guitars on this album and a couple of tracks of bass. Matt Thompson, who was the guy who told me like, you can do this. And he helped, record some of this, played some bass, but mostly this is me and Matt and Chris Davies. And then Sean O'Keefe mixed it and I put it out with no expectations at all. I just put it out. I did contact, a radio planetary press who would like send it out to radio. It did chart, but I'm an unknown. It didn't get very high on the top 200 college, but it did do more than I had expected. But what was more exciting was that people were telling people about it. Like, oh, you would love this album. If you love early Liz Phair, if you love Amy Mann, if you love Juliana Hatfield, if you love 90s alternative female pop rock, or, you're going to love this record. And people were telling people were writing about it, people were sharing it. And I sold out of my record and I'm on my second print of it. But I was like, this is so awesome.
That's fantastic.
I know. So what happened is I was loving life. I was loving, I really, the people who get me and get my music really get it. And I'm so appreciative of that. And so I was thinking in earnest, like, okay, maybe I'll put another album out, but I wasn't in any kind of rush at all. And I just started writing some sketches of songs. In fact, Your Permission, the single
Mhm.
off of the new record, was one of
Right.
those sketches. But I was not in a rush. I didn't think at all I would put one out a year later, but circumstances happened. And I'm not sure if you know I'm not sure how much you know um, about why that happened so quickly. So, but if you
Please,
want me,
please.
yeah. So what happened is, I had been writing sketch for Your Permission, and it was only a 1 minute song. And then I kind of like completed it, and I really liked it because it was different. And it was more so a piano driven song, starting with the Wurlitzer sound, Oregon kind of had a kind of a vintage vibe to it. It definitely was been compared to Amy Mann, but
Oh, I can hear
I
that.
was,
I hear all these references in your
yeah,
music.
yeah, good, good. So then I was like, okay, well, maybe I could put something else out. But I felt a little bit insecure because I knew how many people liked the first record. And I wasn't sure what I wanted to say. Like,
Were you worried that they would compare the new record unfavorably to the first?
yes. And also, I was still in a place where the Restless Dreams of Youth had such a strong message. I mean, we're talking about nostalgia, we're talking about looking back, and we're also talking about where I am now, facing things that happened in the past, looking at who I am now. But
Mhm.
what did the new record want to say? And so as I was writing, I was really not putting any pressure on myself. But what happened is, um, kind of an awful story is that my father got sick. This happened extremely quickly, Art. He became sick, and I had a bad feeling because he was like, had a flu, wasn't recovering so quickly. He took a red eye to Florida. And when I landed, he was already in the hospital. And then a
Oh
week,
dear.
yeah. And then a week later, he passed away.
I'm so sorry.
Thank you. Um I I don't know if you've been through something where somebody that you love more than, pretty much anybody, because he's my dad and we are
Right.
very, very, very close, is just gone.
Yeah.
And I really went into not just a depression, but like I don't even know what I'm supposed to do with like my life, my emotions, my what matters anymore. What do I care? It wasn't a depression where you feel like I don't want to live anymore. It wasn't like that. It was just like I don't even know how to sort of get through my day. Like
Sure.
this is so hard, and I'm not sure how I could kind of function. He's just not here anymore. Like this is a person I talk to every single day. And so I was really a lost soul. And when I came back from Florida, you know, I'm not a very religious person. I am very spiritual though, but I think that that comes through with my lyrics and my music. So I went into the studio and like kind of locked myself in there. I do have a job, I do have a family, and I was not very easy to be around, I don't think. I put a lot of energy into just like my emotions through my lyrics, but I wasn't thinking about the album. I was just like, I need to get these emotions out.
Right. You're processing your grief.
Yeah. And I was going through grief therapy, but there was something about it that felt missing to me because I'm not a
Mm.
very open person unless I'm putting it to music. I know it sounds weird, but like I felt more comfortable making it into something beautiful than just sitting in a room and talking to somebody.
Sure.
So
Sure.
as I was writing these lyrics, they were very, very dark, but they also felt like therapeutic. And I noticed a lot of themes coming together. And weirdly, I was like starting to see how this could become a story, little short stories about healing, starting over, start at the end,
Mhm.
what I needed to do for myself. What does it mean when somebody dies? What does it mean for you? What does it mean to contemplate your life? What does it mean to be afraid and rebirth and all of these things? And so I was like, man, I, like this,
Yeah.
then I became like a little bit obsessive compulsive about it because I already
Oh,
had
trying to make things fit that idea?
no finishing the record.
Oh, I see. I see.
Yes, I became almost like unhealthily OCD about completing it. I think in retrospect, it was to help me heal.
Sure.
And so I became like, I made a goal, like I made a mental goal that after I re-record the drums in December, this record needs to be mixed and done. And I need to put it out in 2022 because my dad died in 2021 and I need to get this out. And I did, but it was painful and like torturous. I got to be honest, the mixing experience was really hard for me. I was really hard on like wanting it to be so perfect. So your question earlier, like, were you worried about comparing? So that was coming into play. The other thing about like me writing the most personal record I've ever written was coming into play. I would be crushed if like nobody was connecting to it when you're very honest and like really putting it out there and people like okay, don't get it.
Yeah.
Oh,
Oh,
that
I mean, artists have to manage, I don't care what kind of art you make
yes.
or create. Artists have to manage vulnerability
Yes.
and
Yes.
revealing. And this is fascinating to me because you're talking about the challenge of interpretation is your own as the artist. And this
Yes.
music is coming not only from the creative spark or whatever we want to call it, right? But it's also coming from your sense of loss, your grief, your connection to your dad.
Yeah.
I mean, that's, I don't know, Tamar, you're putting a lot on yourself with all of
Yes.
that, right?
Right.
That's a lot.
And I felt it. I mean, I don't think I was very healthy mentally and emotionally and actually physically. I think I was drinking a lot more. I think I wasn't sleeping very well. I wasn't eating. And I there was just so much wrapped up in my head about it. And I can see it now, but I couldn't see it at the time.
Mm.
But what's so beautiful though, and I must say is I loved to listen to the record myself. And when I did, I felt calmer and I felt thankful that I had the outlet. And I also felt like my dad would like it. And I also felt like it was everything I would want to say to him.
Mm.
And because there was a lot of unfinished things when somebody dies so quickly, it's you don't have time to mentally understand that everything that's going to happen is going to stick in your brain for like eternity, like forever. And
Right.
yeah, so that was really hard and but it was very therapeutic. I found myself listening to the record a lot, listening to the mixes a lot, a lot, a lot, and I felt more calm. And I was like, well, if I like listening to it and it feels good to me, um, I think I'm ready to get it mastered, and I think I'm ready for it to be out. And I can't control, for any artist, like you said, for any artist, you put it out in the world and the world decides. There is no controlling what somebody is going to feel.
Yeah.
And, and sometimes, I've seen so many things of TV shows and other, documentaries about artists that, these things that never get recognized, and it's good stuff and you just don't know why. I don't know why either. And again, I'm not famous, so but the recognition in my little small circle is really been wonderful. And that's okay. That's enough. You
Yeah.
know, would I like to be more recognized? Um, I don't know. I don't know what that means anymore. I've been doing this for so long that I don't I can't imagine what and don't understand what that means. Like, are you, if you're talking about, like you mentioned before we talked, those, what, 30 artists that
Right.
everyone
Right.
talks about all the time that are out there. You only hear those names over and over as recording artists. There are some of them I really like though, but it takes a lot for the other folks to like poke their heads out. And I don't really know. Like, somebody asked me, well, what do you want? I said, I actually just, I like where I am. And I like if I could even slowly more people hear about it. Just a slow build is good. I don't want this like overnight thing. That doesn't make sense for who I am, you know?
Well, I have to ask, what did your dad think about your music or the fact that you were making music?
Oh, he was so awesome. He, he always supported it. He's a realist. So, and he's a survivor of war. So in his mind, as long as I had a day job and
You
could
can do
could
whatever you wanted,
could pay
just have
my
the day
bills,
job.
yeah, have that side of my head that was realistic and grounded. He loved that I was making art. He was a lover of art. Oh my gosh, loved paintings all over his house. He was a painter himself. He loved listening to opera. He would go to the operas and just, for him, he was a lover of art and he didn't really know where he got that from. So he loved that I was doing this. He was amazed, and would listen and say, I like that album, or I like that song. It's so cool. And it's so, he liked a lot of videos. Before he died, I do remember him liking a lot of things from the Restless Dreams of Youth, particularly
Hmm.
one of the videos and the song Better Off Meditating. He would play that for his friends in Florida because well, a little side note is the dress that I'm wearing in that video was my mom's from back. It's like a vintage dress. So I think
Oh,
it
right.
brought back a few memories for him. He's like,
Oh,
"Oh, you're wearing your mother's dress." So there was like, I think he loved that. I don't know. You know.
and that it what a wonderful gift to give to you, his
Yeah.
support, right?
Yes.
I mean,
Yes.
God willing, of course, you had his love, and you had that kind of family support. But what a cool gift to give to you, to be in his own way, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Supportive of the music.
Yes, yes. He was. And I didn't talk about it a lot with them because I had a different kind of relationship with them. I guess I didn't need their approval for my music. It was a different it's like they knew that I did it, but it was not like I didn't see like, "Mom and Dad, look what I'm doing." Like it wasn't important to me. I think we talked about other things. We had a different kind of relationship. They knew I did music and they were pleased that I had some outlet. And I think even now that my dad's gone, my mother was so happy that I had music because she had, you need something. And she so was so happy that I had that, that I still have it, I think everybody needs something though, to be
Oh, I
honest.
agree.
Yeah, I think a job can only provide so much unless it's your own company, I would say. If it's your own business, if it's your own like heart and soul, um, I think if you work for someone or some company, it's really only going to fulfill to a certain percentage of your being because it's not yours.
Right.
So whatever you do when you get home, like do it, because that's what's fulfilling. That's what your thing is. So yeah.
And you've been doing this thing called music for a long time. Do
Yeah.
you see yourself always creating music?
I also paint. In fact, like if there's a
Oh,
couple,
okay, okay.
yeah, there's a couple things. I I kind of do these weird, kind of psychedelic, colorful paintings, just for myself. But what it indicates to me is that I kind of always had to do something. If it wasn't music, I also used to be a ballerina. So I danced, I paint, I make art. Like I can't even imagine not doing something art with in regards to art. It doesn't make sense to me. It doesn't, I don't even understand how I would wake up in the morning. It's just how I always have been. So it's interesting when I meet people that don't have that. I barely relate to them. I
Yeah.
have a hard time relating to them,
Yeah. Oh,
you
yeah,
know?
yeah, yeah.
So, um,
It speaks to your earlier comment. Forgive me. It speaks to your
yeah.
earlier comment about needing things that are fulfilling. And
Mm-hmm.
I would dare say, and you can jump all over me if you disagree, and please do if you disagree. I don't think you need to be perfect at it. I don't think you
Right.
need to be the world's best, whatever, right? Sculptor, painter, poet, songwriter, right?
Right.
Sometimes what I'm drawn to, whether it's music or art, particularly even visual art, is the supposed mistakes.
Yes.
Because the
And
supposed mistakes show me humanity.
yes, and
Yeah.
also the process is what is really in the discipline of art. It's the process. To get to and I was just on another podcast and I was talking about how earlier in my songwriting, I would write the song, record all the parts on my 4-track or my Pro Tools, all the parts, and present it to the band, including like a drum loop, or I would even play drums. And that was it. The song was done. Boom. And I never would go back and rethink anything. And earlier in my career, it was just the way that I was. But as I got older, I thought there, it's organic. It should be thought through. It should change. It can change. It can evolve. It could be not perfect. It could be messy. It could be what we are, which is humanity. We're not perfect. We're not finished. And in retrospect, I think some of my earlier stuff was it was trying so hard to contain all the elements that you would say need to be in a pop song that it almost felt like it didn't stick with you. Like you'd
Mm.
listen to it, you'd enjoy it. It was very hooky, but it didn't resonate. It didn't stay with you. And I think that the imperfections, like you say, or the thought process and the sort of space in songs leave the listener to like, I want to play that song again. There's something to it that leaves me. Okay, and for instance, I'll give you an example. I really like Lana Del Rey. Not all of her stuff, but the last record that I was very moved by of hers was Chemtrails Over the Country Club. But it wasn't that song, it was White Dress. White
Oh,
Dress,
really?
yes. Now, White Dress was
Interesting.
was a song that had a lot of criticism, that she chose to sing in a weird way. She did some really off the wall things, but it is the best song I think she's ever written because it's just so heartbreaking. I feel that song so much, and I think it's so incredible because it's just not perfect. It's not easily replicated. It's not phony.
I
It
was thinking the same thing. Anybody can write a song about heartbreak, write a
Yes,
poem, or write a story about heartbreak, because being human means, you have to. I'm trying to think. A friend of mine put this. You have to be willing to risk breaking your heart, even, or you have to be. I'll get my
yes,
take two. You
yeah,
have to be willing to risk breaking a heart, even if it's your own. And that
yes,
line, which, okay, I got after botching it, that line has always resonated with me. That
yeah,
you have, in whatever way, whatever your pursuit or art or activity is, you got to put yourself out there. And that means you're
yes,
going to stumble. And the
yeah,
stumble is okay. And in stumbling, maybe you learn something real. In revealing your heartbreak, as long as it's authentic, as long
hmm,
as it's real to you, and whatever that means, right? Whatever that
yes,
means. Oh,
yes.
wow, she got a lot. Yeah, it's interesting because although the press around the album, it's a great album, but why is this song on there? I think it's on there for the perfect reason, right?
It is
Because it
the
doesn't fit, it needs to be on
yes, and
there.
it is the most honest. I mean, it's you know, and so and I there's some artists that I admire and like I want to push myself. And then that's another thing with earlier stuff. When you're a songwriter, you are either in a state of mind where you're thinking about um, what others are going to think when they listen to it. And if you do that, you're not really creating your own sound because you're not really putting out what you as an artist is
Yeah.
going to create. And so you're thinking about what people might want to hear. And I think I did that a lot earlier in my career. They're not bad songs. They're just not um they're not as honest, I guess, because I didn't know how to be that way. I was too
Sure.
self-conscious, too young. And this album is probably the one that like was so hard to write, but it was also like so real.
Yeah, so was some of the difference, are you like thinking about this in a mechanical way? Like you're proverbially checking boxes? Oh, well, we need to have this kind of dynamic, or we need to have this
Oh,
kind
good
of a
question.
chorus, or because this is what people expect in a pop song. So
Good question.
was it mechanical for you?
No, 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 no. So I didn't plan anything like that. So the songs became the songs as I wrote them. The only thing I thought about in a sort of planning way is as the songs started coming together, I started to think about the album as a whole. And I did feel that it was missing some energy in certain places because I did not want this to be a bummer of an album. I didn't want it to be a hopeless album. I didn't want it to be a depressing album. I wanted it to have a little of the hope that we need also.
Sure.
And so I thought about that, and there was some really planned things. Like, for instance, Real Bad Day was a song that was older, but I felt like after Sweet Relief, the end of side one, and this is the album for people who haven't seen the cover, the end of side one ends with Sweet Relief. And I wanted to start side two with like some energy, and not just because I felt like it needed it, but I actually was like, okay, I need something fun. Like, I need something fun. And so I put Real Bad Day there. And it doesn't fit perfectly, but it actually is like, oh, this is fun. Tamar's fun. She could be fun when she wants to be fun, you know? And also, I was like, this is great. And my child loved it. Tuesday,
Yeah,
my
yeah.
my kid's name is Tuesday. And I
Okay.
remember Tuesday was like, I love that song. You need to put that song on the record. And I
Yeah.
was even like, it doesn't fit. And they were like, no, 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 you need to put it on. And when I found the right spot for it, I was like, yes, it is like a nice release. It
Hmm.
feels good. Um, and then I also was thinking on side two that I need sort of another kind of more up tempo-y song that was kind of coming into a lyrically feeling of where I was getting to at the end of the album, which was like, you know, I sometimes just need to not make any decisions and just let things happen. And so the song Dandelions in My Flower Bed, back
Oh
to
yeah.
back, back
I'm
to
sorry.
back,
Great song. Great
thank
song.
you. Um, back to back with Just Be is a message to myself and to maybe the listener of like, you can't control everything all the time. Only the higher power, nature, whatever you believe in is going to have that, is going to answer that question for you. And sometimes you just need to let things happen and not try to control everything. And
Sure.
so, when it came to so Dandelions was a concerted effort on my part to write something that had a fun chorus, but it had kind of a heavier idea that can be hard when you're struggling. Um, so your question is like mechanical, maybe in the sense of how I was putting the album together as a whole message. Yes. But during the writing of the songs, they would just kind of come out the way they did. And maybe I would switch parts around. Sometimes I would add a bridge or move a part or like, this is too long, I'm going to shorten it. But yeah, does that help? Does that make
No, no,
sense?
no. That makes total sense.
Okay.
I'm just curious. This is one of those awful questions that you ask, and especially difficult because this is a deeply personal record for you. Do you have a favorite song on the album?
Oh, good
Or
question.
does that change
It
as you
does.
go through listening
Yes.
experiences?
Yes, it does change. And what I like about that is it means that there's not like a one hit on it.
Mm.
Now, it changes for several reasons personally. It changes because I'm very connected to songs that I write because I remember when and why I wrote it and who it's about or a situation
Oh,
that it's about.
oh, every song.
Oh, every single song I've ever
Wow,
written. Yes, because
wow.
it's just like an embedded in my memory. But on Start at the End, there are songs that I like for various reasons. Some I'm proud of musically, some I'm proud of lyrically, some I just like to listen to the most because I like want to sing along with it. You
Right,
know,
right.
so like currently it really does change. But like today, today,
Right.
which is Wednesday, I'm really digging This Is Me Trying.
Oh,
And the
nice. Okay.
last song, and that's because I've been thinking about that song a lot, and I just posted a video on my Instagram using that song, and it was of the movie. I don't know if you're familiar with the 90s movie Run Lola Run,
Yes.
but so I put the last chorus to that movie scene of her running.
Yeah.
And I was thinking a lot about that song and how, sometimes it's called This Is Me Trying. And it really it ends the album so well, but it's on my mind and I love singing along with that track because it's very like alternative power pop Weezery kind of like
It
big
is.
power
It is.
chords, but the message is so true. And it's like I sometimes it's just like, can I just get from the morning to the evening without breaking down and crying? And if
Sure.
that's my goal today, then I'm good. You know, I'm trying and telling my loved ones sometimes, like during the period of like really rough days where sometimes, your spouse just doesn't even know what to say to you anymore.
Right.
And and you can just say, I'm trying and I hope you understand that I'm trying. Isn't sometimes maybe enough for them? Like I really am trying it. I know it doesn't look like it, but I want you to recognize that I'm trying and that I want you to know that I am. You
Well,
know.
I gotta ask you about June Lake
Yes.
because
Oh,
I
thank you.
really like June Lake.
Thank you
And
so much.
well, to me, I'll be totally blunt and honest. The album is phenomenal. There's not a bad track on the record.
Oh, thank
It
you.
it really spoke to me immediately. I think I listened to it 3 times from start to finish, and I've got to say, I'm under some pretty heavy time crunches. Um, or at least I was. Now that the semester has ended, I have a little more time. But my garden is looking at me like, dude,
Yes.
come on.
Yeah,
We
and you
got
don't want to
stuff to
plant
put in.
dandelions there.
We got stuff to put in the soil. Well, I don't mind the dandelions so much as I just really enjoy gardening and
Yes.
reconnecting to something that is
Pure.
more.
Pure.
Thank you.
Yes. Yes, that's
Your
nature
words are
for you.
better than mine, Tamar.
Yes,
Uh,
yes.
but June Lake is an interesting song. It has a
Thank
neat
you.
turnaround in it. I mean, musically, it's interesting. Lyrically, I'm still trying to figure out. Like, okay, I'm not entirely sure what this is about yet, but I'm enjoying the ride. I'm enjoying
Good.
trying to figure it out.
I'm not going to tell you. There's no real, I would say June Lake. Okay, musically that song was written a long time ago. Musically had
Yeah, yeah.
completely different lyrics.
Really?
It has been through incarnations of lyrics that never stuck, never felt right, but I loved the music of it. And so um I was really thinking about what I wanted from the vibe of the guitar riffs. And the verse had been written in a really down day. I was really down and I was really thinking about my dad, which brings up a lot of things about who you are.
Mhm.
When you go to grief counseling, you know, I suppose not all grief counseling, but they ask you to analyze your relationship with this person.
Right.
And you have to break down, you know, the good and the bad of them and who you are, what you might think they see in your eyes, what you got, the good and the bad from them. And I think the verses of that was just me really reflecting on my parents and like how I grew up. The chorus was came in sort of a magical way that I can't even really describe, but lyrically it was a place that is a real place. There is a real place called June Lake.
Okay.
There is a real place, but
Well, see
I've
that
never
right there, I'm a sucker for that. Right, you could stop right there, and I'd be fine.
I've never been there. But there
Oh,
is a
really? But you wrote about it.
I wrote about it. So
Oh,
maybe
see,
that, yeah. So, you know, it's kind of one of those things where that song I'm really, really proud of because it was not an easy song. And that I know it sounds very dramatic, but it kept me up at night. I'm not even kidding.
oh, I believe it. Well, I mean, musically, there's a lot going on. But I don't mean
Yes.
that in the sense of like a dynamic, like it's loud. But musically, there are lots of differing things going on as part of your crafting of the song. And then
Yes.
lyrically, again, like I said, I I need to pay more attention because when I'm sitting in my office with when I had the opportunity to listen to this album 3 times through, which I almost never do anymore. So I'm like, whoa, I do like this record. But I was really struck by I think these work incredibly well together. You know what I mean? How sometimes I don't mean just about force fitting, but it's like they clash. It's
Yeah.
possible to have, well, whereas I thought like, okay, I feel like I've just taken a ride in this song, and
Yes, thank
I
you.
don't know what that means yet. Like I say, I got to live with it more. But I thought that was interesting, and I thought immediately that, okay, I need to think about what the artist is trying to create here, because it certainly spoke to me.
Oh, I love that. Thank you. I mean, it's however you interpret it. Um, and I think that was the thing because it was a particular thing where I wanted to not be very clear. Because a lot of times I'm really very, very specific in my lyrics.
Okay.
And this was one of the songs where I did not want to be on purpose. So, because you could think of a song like Hoping This Day Won't Kill Us, and it's very specific. It's
Right.
vague in some ways it's vague and maybe, but it's very specific in the chorus, and it's pretty clear what the message is of that song. Um, and that's actually something as an artist that I like. I like playing around with being kind of vague and also like a really specific. Um, because when I listen to songs of an artist that I love, you're always trying to connect to it. You're trying to find your life in that song. And as an artist, that's a goal of mine. Like, how could I make you a male, an older male that's white? I mean, just,
I hear
put
you.
it, how could you connect to it?
Yeah.
And I feel very accomplished when I make that happen because, you know, because it's like such a beautiful thing and it's such a human thing. Somehow you connected with it. Maybe something struck you, maybe it was the melody, maybe it was just the message. And I remember in various albums I've listened to over the year, like those moments where I'm like, I feel this. And it's a goal of mine. So when I hear that, thank you for telling me that because that's like a serious goal.
I'm also curious about the way you use your voice, which
Yeah.
is, and feel free to correct me if I'm wrong here, but you use your voice in different ways in different songs.
I do. Yeah.
And so I'm catching that, and I'm like, oh, okay. Well, like Tragic Endings,
Yeah.
right? Has a certain kind of vocal style or
Mhm.
pattern
Mhm.
that's different than June Lake, or is
Yeah.
different than um, oh gosh, Your Permission. Um,
Yes.
and I don't know what it. Of course, I also thought there's really great guitar tone throughout this record, and I'm a sucker for that. But
Yeah.
also it's not like it. Like I said earlier, it's not just that it's allowed, that it's used well, and it's used to connect to like an emotional journey, or like a feeling of emotion that someone should have when they're listening. When the chorus comes in, right?
Right.
Or when there's a turnaround in a song, or when a particular line is delivered.
Yes. Yeah.
Right?
No,
They
it's
should complement each other, not fight against each other.
right.
And
No, I
your
think
vocals
about
are interesting. Your vocals
thank you.
are they're not like the same voice in the same way in every single song. And forgive me
Thank
if I'm
you.
making a mountain out of a molehill, but
No,
I
I
think
really
that
I
you're really interesting in how you use your voice.
thank you. Yeah, no, no. And part of me is like I I I feel like the mood of the song requires certain things and when I'm in that mode of that song, let's say Your Permission, I'm whispering to this person.
Yeah.
It's not a loud conversation. And actually it's such an ironic song that I feel like I need to whisper because it's just so bizarre for me to be asking somebody's permission to be a certain way.
Yeah.
And and then when you go to Tragic Endings, it's like this more of a statement like this is like kind of like okay, this is my reality of how I think every day. And then when I was writing June Lake, I really thought about how to be super intimate with my voice so that somebody feels like I'm speaking to them alone and nobody and sweet relief as well. I really mixed that so the vocals are very close to the mic and loud. And so when you're listening with headphones, it feels intimate. I'm not pushing the voice very well. And again, Art, some of it is like what I want to listen to. Like I want this song to feel intimate. So I'm going to try a few different things on the mic. I edit my own vocals.
Oh, do you?
Yes, there was a couple tracks where I sat with Matt Thompson. We edited together, but it was always like, "What do you think of that take? What do you think of that take?" Sometimes I will take the whole verse as it is and just tweak a few words. But yes, like we listen, or I'll listen on my own and say, "That's what sounds good." Yeah, because I produce all the records, so I have to like feel like I made the right choice, that like that's how I wanted those words to come across, you know?
And your production, is that a choice that you made because you want to be able to do that, right? And you know what you have in mind, or are there other reasons why you want to produce?
No, no, I will make my own mix where what I want to hear the most of, where I want things to come in and out. And then I'll send that to Sean O'Keefe and say, this is like my vibe. This is what I'm wanting to hear. This is where I'm wanting to go. And then he'll just do like the most amazing job with all of the magic that he has to try really hard to follow what I'm hoping to hear. Um, and I think it's good that I step away from it, because when you are your own producer and you can engineer, you can become so into the weeds. As a gardener, you understand that. Like so into the weeds
Right.
that you've lost the main gist of the song. And so I'll send Sean a rough mix that I'm pleased with, and I say that this is the gist of it, and he'll make it so that he's looking at the 30,000 feet view of it, the
Right.
big picture of the song, as the listener would. And oftentimes will tell me, Tamar, you're focused so much on that part, it's not going to matter. And then sometimes we'll argue, like, no, no, this has to be loud. Like, I need to hear that, you know. But I guess that's my artistic thing coming through. He's
Sure.
looking at the song, because when you break down a song, somebody once asked me this, or there was a conversation about, well, what's a song? And that could be very controversial, especially to band members. But I would say that a song is melody, lyrics, and chords. Some would argue the chords um, can be changed, but the melody and the lyrics are really the song. So it can be controversial. And some then would add and rhythm and rhythm. But if you look at the definition in ASCAP, let's just say
Right.
Association of American Composers and whatever, they will ask you, who write, lyrics and melody, you know, and that's really what the song is. So people often change chords when they do cover versions of things, but the melody is recognizable and still there. You can make a minor chord and change the mood. And oftentimes some covers are like even better than the originals, but the melody is still intact, and the lyrics are intact. So
A
it's an
great
interesting conversation to have,
it,
I suppose.
it is, isn't it? I mean, because I what attracts me to cover versions, and I know there are all these controversies about what is a song, and what does it mean to cover a song? What does it mean to recreate or
Right, right.
craft in a different way a song? And I don't consider a good cover is if it's basically a different group of people playing exactly the same thing.
Right. Right. I mean, a good cover, okay, the only one that, kind of comes to mind just like off the top of my head would be like Joe Cocker's version of um what would you do if I said? I love Ringo's voice on that and the Beatles version, and I also love Joe Cocker's. And in some ways, Joe Cocker's moves me a little bit more.
Oh, sure, I can hear that.
But they're both awesome, but he brings something to it. Now, it's still the
Yes.
melody,
Yes.
still the chord progression, and still the lyrics. And that's the song, you know. And it's sort of a controversial thing. I think bands sometimes, well, I wrote this part of it, and it really is up to a band to decide like how the song was put together. When you're a songwriter, um, I write all the parts, I hear them in my head. Could a bass player play them better and add to that? Oh,
Mm.
yes, definitely. I'm a bass player, but I'm not a bass player. Like I can play bass. Let's put it that way. I can play bass, but I'm not a bass player. So
Sure.
I can give them what I'm hearing and they can make it magical. Um, if you're writing with a band, then that becomes a kind of, I guess, a unit's piece, more a band piece, you know? It's an interesting conversation.
Yeah,
And
I
I
mean, because
mean,
the,
yeah.
the most compelling covers for me do something unique to that
Mm-hmm.
other artist's vision.
Yes.
And I like you mentioned with Joe Cocker doing the classic Ringo Starr, right, with a little help with my friends. That he brings such an interesting soulful interpretation
Yes.
to it.
Yes.
He's it's like he's got a blues voice with a soul or neo soul approach, and then he's taking this kind of iconic song and saying, well, the real element here that we want to focus on is this, and
Yeah.
he
I mean,
does such a
I
great job with it.
I was thinking about that the other day, like how freaking ballsy of him
A
to
little bit,
to
yeah.
do that.
Sure,
I
especially
mean,
at that time period.
yes. I mean, really, like that is such an amazing, courageous thing to do and do it well. You know,
Right, right.
um, and there are other covers that I hear sometimes on, there's some new artists that are doing covers that I sometimes hear in like movie soundtracks or TV shows, because now that's like a big trend for newer
Mhm.
artists to cover like classic songs. And I do like some of those as well. I do like some. I know Miley Cyrus is like big right now in covering classic rock songs and stuff, and she can sing. Do I think it's better than the original? So far I haven't heard one that I think she does better. Um, but she can sing and I love hearing it. Uh,
Right, right.
But
Well, just having fun in of itself is not a bad goal,
right.
right?
How did
You
we
know,
get on this cover thing? Oh, I think I
I
was
don't
just
know.
talking
I'm not
about
quite sure, but I'm really enjoying it.
I know, me too. I think we were talking about song interpretation
Oh,
and what
yeah,
a song is.
I
What
think that's
is
how we got from the kind of the interpretive framework.
right.
But and that talking about covers is a natural part of interpretation. I have to ask the controversial question to you. Have you ever played covers? I think you've played for so long. Surely you've played covers. Is there anything you
Definitely.
enjoy covering that you think you bring a different twist to, a different interpretation to?
If there's a song that I want to cover, it's mostly because I love it so much, but then I will never think that it's better than the original. So, but okay, I'll give you a couple covers that I've done that you can find some places online. I love Cat Stevens, and I love that song, Sing Out. Beautiful
Yeah.
song. I've done the cover of Sentimental Woman by Bob Welch.
Interesting.
Such a great song. I've been in a band called Deep Joy, which was a Small Faces cover band, if you can believe it.
Oh, I can.
Yep. And then in my other bands in Portland, we did lots of covers of Deep Purple and the Monkees and a bunch of garage bands
How
and
fun. Just
and
simply how,
Jefferson Airplane. Oh, yes. So you can find me singing a bunch of things online. Um, oh yeah, The
I have
Doors.
to go to bed at some point tonight
I
because
know,
you're
I
giving
know,
me this really fun rabbit hole, and
I know, I know. Covers are great, but and some people start out doing that. But I'm definitely a person that is better at singing my own songs.
sure,
To be
sure.
honest, I
Oh,
don't have
sure.
that skill like some people do. So.
Right. I am curious, back to start at the end.
Hmm.
Has anyone commented on the record without knowing some of your motivation in making the record so quickly after the restless dreams of youth?
I think they would only know that. I mean, I guess in my bio it says after the death of her father.
Okay.
If they took the time to read that, but people
Yeah,
don't always do that.
sure.
Or if they've listened to an interview. Some people I've noticed are buying the record based on like a song they might have heard um, on, I don't know, on a playlist, on
Oh
Spotify or
yeah, I
something
saw
like
that.
that.
That didn't you
Yeah.
get on one of those fresh Spotify playlists or
Yes, on the
new music
NPR new
playlists?
music.
That's
Yeah.
awesome.
Yes, yes. And that gets you into a whole new audience. And
Right.
so yeah, so start at the end, I would say yes, if you had not read a single thing about me, um, I think you would still get it. I think it just adds a little bit to the meaning knowing uh, why, you know. But it all depends on what kind of music listener you are. If you are a music listener that doesn't want to know too much, you know, I think then you would probably enjoy it either way. There's
Right.
some albums like I don't want to know who that's about. Like for Carole King, for instance, for years everybody wanted to know what You're So Vain and who You're So Vain was about. When it finally came out that it was about David Geffen, I suppose, I think I read
Yeah.
that. I was like,
Yeah.
really? I mean, I guess. I mean, it's still a great song, but it it left the mystery. The
Yeah.
mystery is gone.
Yes. That is an excellent point. Um, it's sort of like I still love that Rilo Kiley song, um, "Portions for Foxes," in part because, first of all, it's a female narrator talking about touching, leading to such and such, leading to such and such,
Hmm.
and and then she says, and then there's no mystery left of what a great unexpected turnaround that adds such lyrical power you don't write something like that unintentionally, right?
Right,
That's an
right.
intentional, thoughtful act.
Yes.
And so
Yes.
this song that you think is just a silly, little rocker, and I'm doing air quotes for people who can't see me. Um, and in reality, right, there's a lot more going on in this simple song. And so when she says, and then there's no mystery left, I'm like, oh, yes. Okay, well done, songwriter.
Yes, I know
And I
exactly what you
love
mean.
that being surprised by something, um,
Yes.
where maybe my interpretation may not be the same as the songwriter, but can be just as impactful, just
And
as
sometimes it
meaningful.
is, and sometimes it destroys the song for you.
Oh, really? Oh, really? Oh, as a
S-
songwriter?
Sometimes.
Oh,
Because
can you say more about that?
um I would say there's maybe a couple song. Okay, I love early Liz Bear, like a
I'm
lot.
right there with you. I'm right there with
Yes,
you.
Exile and Guyville and
Oh,
Whipsmart
it's a
are
brilliant record.
brilliant. And I kind of went into the rabbit hole of listening to lots of podcasts about that album and including podcasts with her speaking about it. And, everybody has their own, who loves early Liz Phair, has their own personal story about listening to that record. And I
Yeah.
think I listened to too many podcasts and learned a little bit too much about some specific songs. And I wished that I would have left the mystery a little bit.
Sure.
So
Sure.
in that way, I learned that it's okay to not be like, oh, well, this song is about this song is about this. And the truth be told is that my songs are never about one specific thing because when I write, they're a mishmash. They're like a dream per se. Like they
Yeah.
could have been inspired by a particular event or particular situation, but they start to bring in lots of other things. So for instance, Sweet Relief, which is one of my favorite songs on the record, starts out about one person, but then is brings in another human into it. It's not just about one person, it's about a few people and relationships in general. And I'm okay with that. And I don't think I ever want to really be very clear about it because anybody who listens to that is going to bring in their own thing. Some people have really connected to it feeling like this is like such a divorce type song. Some people feel like it's definitely about somebody, who died. Somebody feels like it's a relationship that's ending. There's just a lot of interpretations of it. And I'm like, it's all of those things. It's okay.
Right.
That's
Right.
great.
Well, and that's part of the beauty
Right.
of this kind of art, that people can see themselves in your music. That has to be really gratifying to you as a songwriter, that people put themselves into what you've made.
Yeah, because I did that with Whip Smart and Exile and Guyville and was like moved so much that I said if and when I do this, and that was really the time where I was like, I'm going to do this someday, that's what I want to do. I want to stop somebody in their tracks and make them feel like, oh my God, this is making my life feel like I'm connecting with this person so much because they've been through this. They are going through this, or they have been through this and they've come out okay and they're feeling empowered. And it's just like, it's such a beautiful thing. I mean, it's just like the human condition when you feel like you can connect with somebody. It's everything because we often feel alone in our grief, in our sadness, in our loneliness, in our hatred, in our anger. And just to know that people get through things and have gone through things is like so much of how we survive, you know?
Well put.
And I mean, we're getting pretty deep here, but like that is the purpose of art to make us understand the human condition. And I've wanted forever to make an impact that way. And, like you said, my paintings are more personal. They're not really making much of a statement. I think and my dance, I never got to the point with ballet that I felt like I reached that pinnacle. But maybe with music, that was the one thing that I've gotten the closest to connecting with, you know? So,
Oh, absolutely. That music helps us process the challenges of being human. It
yes.
helps us manage our emotions. Speaking of managing,
Yes, yes, we're
we've
getting
talked
it's
for
really
a
late.
we have talked for a long time. Oh,
I
man, I talk for a living, so that's not a problem. Um, I really appreciate you
oh,
taking the
thank you.
time
Yes, I've loved
to,
it.
and such thoughtful answers too. I I'm gonna do a couple of things. I'm gonna
Yes.
put this up on the YouTube channel as
Okay.
is because
Oh,
I
wow.
think it works.
Okay.
Um, and your answers are so thoughtful.
Oh,
Um,
thank you.
you're clearly a considerate person. Um, or as a friend of mine once said, armor-plated human being, sensitive artist.
Love that.
I know, me too. It's like, I want that on a T-shirt.
Definitely. No,
but
it's
I
been
can't
great, Art. Thank you so much.
thank you so much.
Yeah, let me know if you need anything, or if you want me to send a Bandcamp code to some other people that you might think might like it. Please let me know. Connect me, because that's
I
like
would especially think about some other radio folks
yeah,
to get
let
the
me
songs
know.
heard.
Yeah.
There are a couple of people that I could either make some electronic introductions or just share. Oh, reach out to Juliet and tell her Art sent you. There are things like
Yes.
that
Yes,
because there's
please.
a great couple of great stations in this area. Obviously, part of what we do, those of us who are involved in this effort, is to just get the music heard and get it heard
Yes.
by as many people as possible. So there are several people that I'm sure would like to at least make some kind of electronic introduction so that they
Perfect.
could they could get it, because I can easily see it fitting on a couple of these other stations as well.
Awesome,
I, I,
Art.
I
Thank
never
you.
make any guarantees
Of
because
course not.
you can't, even though you
I
want
know,
to.
I know, no, but thank you so much. And keep in touch for sure.
Oh yeah, honestly,
On
please,
Twitter too. We'll
yeah,
talk.
make sure that you let us know. Obviously, if you're ever in Ohio, I would
Of
love to know
course.
that. Or for
Yes.
that matter, if you have like more videos coming out, or of course, you maybe doing two back to back. Maybe you want to take some time for yourself and your family. But should you have more music in the pipeline, which I suspect you probably do, I would very much like to just know about that so I can help to spread the word.
Thanks, Art. And just playing the songs and telling folks about it is awesome. And this was awesome. So thank you.
Oh,
Mwah.
take care. Be well.
Okay.
Bye bye.
Bye.